Good afternoon, South High families. This is High School Principal Pete Modi reaching out with a quick overview of what the fall schedule is going to look like for all of us as we transition into whatever's coming this fall. We are moving to a block schedule, which I wanted to spend some time explaining to you. So I'm going to share some information in this quick overview, just so you can begin considering some of the ramifications and the reasons why we've decided to move in this direction. If you have questions, you're always welcome to follow up with me or with the student's guidance counselor. But please know that this is obviously a work in progress as we work with New York State Department of Education and Governor Cuomo, and we're still waiting to hear what his directives are in terms of how things are going to take shape. Thank you. As I just mentioned, we are moving to a 4x4 block schedule for 2020-2021 at South Glens Falls High School. This means that we will have 4 blocks per day on a 4-day cycle with an A, B, C, and D day. I wanted to take just a few minutes to go over the reasons why we're moving in this direction for the upcoming school year. Please remember there are a lot of factors that are still up in the air as we await decisions and guidance from the New York State Department of Education and the Department of Health, as well as Governor Cuomo. It makes sense to have plans in place to the best of our ability, which is what we are on the path to doing this summer. First, I wanted to cover why we're looking at making this move now. The biggest factor is finding ways that we can reduce the number of possible contacts students and staff have during the school day. We currently have a 9-period school day with 8 periods and a lunch period. The block schedule that we are transitioning to effectively reduces the number of classrooms, hallway transitions, and students that anyone might come into contact with by 50% each day. It also allows us to concentrate on the much needed areas of social emotional learning and support and relationship building between our staff and students, with teachers having longer durations of time to work with students on a sustained level. It also allows us to provide additional supports through our school counselors, social workers, and administration without it costing a student most or all of an academic period. This also helps us mitigate the impact of increasing the need for passing time as we move towards the recommendation to have one-directional hallways at South High as much as possible. Another advantage is that it slows the pace of the day as a whole, which can help with fine-tuning, explaining, and engaging pivot plans in the event we do move back and forth from in-person classes to hybrid and/or virtual learning throughout the year. And it also allows us to more easily work through a potential hybrid model in the event we have to have a cap of 50% of the student population, or more or less, for in-person classes. After spending 17 years as a teacher and an administrator in block scheduling schools, I saw that students enjoyed being able to concentrate on just 3 or 4 classes per day instead of 7 or 8. In the event of a change to a virtual model this year, we'll need to be much more aggressive with our requirements for attendance and the use of instructional minutes. But the thought of a student having to attend virtual classes for 7 or 8 different classes each day seems like a lot to most people, myself included. Students can have the ability not only to have less assignments and different subjects to manage in a given day, but with an extended amount of time in the classroom, from 40 to 81 minutes, there are opportunities for students to get started on homework in the room to make sure they're on the right track before having to complete it without their teachers at home. I also can emphasize that from my own experience, as well as some actual research, not having to change from social studies to science to English to math to music to PE to an elective nearly every single day seems to cause less mental churn for students and often staff alike. When comparing our old schedule to the 4x4, I want to quickly cover how the transition plays out. Students who previously took a subject that met every single day for 40 minutes, such as social studies, will now have that class every other day for 81 minutes. If a student had a class such as health that met every other day for 40 minutes, it will now meet once every 4 days for 81 minutes. A popular frequently asked question is whether or not students who had double periods of a class will now have a double block. The answer is no. For classes like science and some math courses that had a second period as a lab, these classes will meet 3 out of the 4 days to provide the extra time. The 4th day will be taken by a class that meets only once per cycle now, such as PE or health, or perhaps a study hall, depending on each student's course request. Music lessons will still be 40 minutes long, and Ms. Orr and Mr. Belknap, who are our primary master schedulers, have worked hard with the music department in order to come up with a way to conduct those classes safely and in a way that will lead to a meaningful learning experience. While we still may need to tweak times based on guidance from the state or what we are learning about passing time with one-directional hallways, our start and end times will be the same. While blocks 1, 2, and 4, as well as homeroom, are fairly self-explanatory, I wanted to talk about block 3 and lunch. In the past, students were assigned a whole period for lunch. In this schedule, lunch is an independent 40 minutes and not a specific period as it was in the past. Students who have lunch 1 will have lunch directly after block 2 and then report to their block 3 class. Students with lunch 2 will have block 3 for 40 minutes and then have 40 minutes of lunch and then report back to their block 3 classes for their final 40 minutes of class. This is normally something that is scheduled for study halls that are block 3, and then we work with teachers who are interested in using the split model as part of their instructional approach. Finally, students who have lunch 3 will report to their block 3 class right after their block 2 class ends, and then have lunch after that before block 4. It might help you visualize what this schedule looks like if I show you some examples, so I'm going to do that for you right now. This first one is an example of a student who takes a AP heavy course load. You can see the rotation of the classes on an every other day basis. The empty spot for this student would most likely be a study hall, and honestly, based on the number of courses and the level of courses this student is taking, that's probably a good thing. I'm showing this second senior schedule just to show that students who don't have as full a load or a schedule will have the opportunity, if they're in good academic, behavioral, and attendance standing, to qualify for late arrival and early release. Again, this is just an example. We generally don't advocate for students to have both early release and late arrival, especially when we consider that we have a lot to help them prepare for with the loss of regular school for the last 15 weeks of last year. This next example just shows a possible junior schedule. Really, the classes are not all that important. I just wanted to give you another example of what a possible rotation would look like. What is most important to note here are the labs. You can see from what I mentioned a few slides ago how geometry with lab is 3 out of the 4 days, and then health in this case is taking the 4th day in that rotation. This is an example of potential sophomore schedule, which would also look very similar to a freshman schedule. Just imagine English 9 instead of English 10 and studio art instead of drawing, for example. Finally, in this quick overview, I just wanted to answer some of the FAQs that we normally get. Please know we are mindful of BOCES students and are working with both the Myers Center and SAAC to make sure we can provide those opportunities. This shift of schedule should have little to no impact on what courses our students can take when they're off campus. Those programs are generally half day, and we can still support that with this model. We're working on the same approach for other off-campus programs such as New Visions, P-Tech, and Clean Tech as well, just for some examples. I know that there is a concern as to whether or not students will be able to stay focused for 81 minutes. In my experience as a teacher and as an administrator, yes, they can. Of course, this helps college-bound students prepare for longer durations classes that they will experience at the college level. But my experience is that focus is only a problem if we use the same methods to teach for 40 minutes, just extend it out to 81. No one does well with 81 minutes of lecture, so by chunking learning opportunities during the block of time to change up what students are doing, teachers can keep students engaged and reduce the need for them to rush from item to item. There is also a reduction in the "we only have 5 minutes of class left" phenomenon that happened 9 times a day to only 4 times per day, and those minutes get absorbed into instruction. Do students lose out on anything? As of right now, students will not lose out on anything. Students in the past generally have taken 6 to 8 classes with a lunch period. Now they have 8 slots with a lunch absorbed into block 3. We pride ourselves on being able to deliver on student requests for courses, and we don't see a reason why we can't honor those requests at our usual rate of somewhere in the high 90% in terms of courses students request and us being able to get them into their courses. If you are concerned about your student getting all of their courses as we get closer to the start of school, that's always a great conversation to have with their school counselor. For students who are heavy into the music and arts, I know there might be some concerns you won't be able to get all your classes. As I noted earlier, the work that Ms. Orr and Mr. Belknap have done with the music and art departments to consider social distancing and still allow for those activities to transpire. They may look a little different, but all are in agreement that we can provide those opportunities the same as we have in the past. And in some cases, we might even be able to get students into more of those music and art classes than they normally would have been able to take with our old schedule. And that brings this short overview to a close for me. I want to remind parents that obviously this is a process we are drafting and tweaking through our move to the block, although our move to the block has been decided for this coming year. Honestly, I think most staff and students will love it after we get used to it. I know you will have questions over the next days and weeks, and we'll do our best to continue to update you to provide the answers we have the ability to provide. Please know that your students' counselors are working this summer, though not every day, and both assistant principals and myself will do our best to respond to messages as fast as we can. Thank you, and I hope you are staying cool in this hot weather.